Good morning. I'm Heidi Arens, and I'm here with Dr. Jolly. He's our director of the hyperbaric department here at the Center for New Medicine. And today we're talking about the importance of oxygen therapy and what oxygen can do. How can we get your bodies utilizing oxygen better? And so, Dr. Jolly, I want you to talk a little bit about what is oxygen therapy? What are maybe some of the conditions where we aren't utilizing oxygen very well? And then what can we help people with? How can we help patients recover better? And what are the conditions that we can do to help maybe prepare their bodies or help heal their bodies from an oxygen deficit state?
Well, since oxygen is the most important element that our body uses, it, number one, keeps us alive. Number two, it is the most important thing for healing. And how do you dose oxygen? You know, for antibiotics and many medications, you dose by adding chemicals or whatever to them. Well, how can you dose a gas? It's very easy, under pressure. That's how they put the fizz in the Coca-Cola, under pressure. So how do we get pressure for oxygen? We go in a wonderful glass hyperbaric chamber, or else a big one that's made like a bus, and we have breathing, or are breathing, 100% oxygen. And 100% oxygen in our body will increase our oxygen level, but it won't magnify it significantly. And how we do that is we go into a chamber that's pressurized. We can watch movies or whatever we want for entertainment for about an hour. And during that hour, we are using 100% oxygen under pressure, which means that we can oxygenate our body hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times more than normal. And oxygen accelerates healing. You got to dose it properly. Well, how do you dose a gas? You dose a gas using pressure. That's how you put the gas in Coca-Cola or 7-Up or any soft drink. You put it under pressure and the gas is dissolved and puts bubbles in the Coke. Now, to the extent of oxygen we have in our body will be the extent of our healing. I wish all of you could see our lobby. We have some befores and after of tragic cases that people would have died without hyperbaric oxygen. And what does hyperbaric mean? Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyper means higher than normal. Baric means pressure. So we apply pressure in an enclosed, sealed environment where there is 100% oxygen, and that 100% oxygen is dissolved into our blood, just like gas is absorbed in Coca-Cola or beer or any of that stuff that we force gas into. And oxygen is the most important thing for healing. So if we can increase the dosage and do it often enough, we can increase healing factors and healing time, or decrease the healing time actually, dramatically.
So I think kind of the most common examples of what we can give people for who would be a good candidate for hyperbaric therapy, I think people with infections, whether it's a skin infection, an internal infection, a pneumonia, a chronic infection, something where their body is, maybe they're taking antibiotics, maybe we're using other things to treat the infection, but infections in general will benefit from hyperbaric therapy just with the accelerated oxygenation. The other thing I think of that is very common is wounds, diabetic ulcers, also any kind of chronic wound, a chronic skin cancer, a wound from any kind of a cancer. For example, breast cancer, there tends to be a lot of wounds with women with breast cancer.
Absolutely.
Also, even metabolic conditions where maybe the patient's diabetic, they get a cut. That cut develops into a massive wound that can go very deep, and they can actually be sometimes fatal.
We can stop it. We can stop it if we get it in time. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then can you give us a few more examples of maybe some alternative cases or scenarios where maybe you don't think that a hyperbaric therapy would benefit people, but it actually does? I think of traumatic brain injury or a car accident.
TBI, we did experiments with soldiers. We had 92% success ratio in soldiers that had TBI, and it changed their life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Because the brain was injured. You don't have to hit your head to have a brain injury. You do not have to hit your head. And what happens to athletes is more often than not, they don't hit their head, but they move very quickly and they're running into each other, and the brain hits the skull, and that's a brain injury, and it can be a traumatic brain injury. And we have incredible success with those kind of injuries, with athletes. And the young athletes that are playing football, that are going crazy all the time and hitting each other and whatever, they don't hit their heads, but they ram each other's bodies, and their brain hits their head and damages it. And we can heal that kind of damage 95% of the time very quickly.
And even concussions. Do you think how common are concussions?
Oh, totally, absolutely.
You may not fall and hit your head, but you can have if a sports injury, a ball hits your head, a car accident, and you have major whiplash.
The whiplash, big time. Big time. Brain hits skull.
And so that's an inflamed brain that we're talking about. When your brain's inflamed, just like inflammation anywhere else in the body, your oxygen delivery to the area is compromised. We also need to bring more oxygen to the area of injury in order to get rid of the toxic byproducts of that inflammation as well.
Oxygen is magic. Not only does it keep us alive, it enhances healing, and in many cases, it will save our lives. That's the way it is.
Can you elaborate just a minute on how hyperbaric can help patients with cancer? We have a lot of cancer patients at our clinic who are undergoing hyperbaric treatment, and maybe they may not be aware that this is an option for them.
Well, first of all, oxygen is going to accelerate any kind of healing that's taking place in the body, any kind of healing. And cancer is an interesting disease for many, many reasons, obviously. But one of the things that we've noticed with cancer patients over the years is it seems to diminish and not eradicate, but it seems to diminish, to slow down the rate of cancer cell replication. And I wish they would do some real studies on that so I could have things to quote. But it appears through the years of observation that that's one of the things that it does. And of course, another thing that's very important along with hyperbarics is to have a diet that is going to be less in the things that will cause acceleration. And I think sugar is probably an evil demon from hell, Doctor. Is that true?
That's a great way of explaining sugar.
Yeah, evil demon from hell. So you want to take away from sugar. Proper hydration has got to be so important. And oxygen, you can dose it. How can you dose a gas? I already explained to you, under pressure. And you can increase the oxygen level in a human body by, we measured one time up to almost 1,000% with hyperbaric therapy. Almost 1,000% increase in oxygen level in the blood.
Can you give our audience maybe just a few takeaways in terms of other things that they can do on a daily basis to increase their oxygen levels, or even to test their oxygen levels? Oh
my goodness, you have all the questions, and that's wonderful. I hope I have some of the answers. One of the ways that you can increase oxygen uptake is by breathing better. And there are two elements involved in breathing. One is the discharge of poison, because our body's creating carbon dioxide that's poison, and we've got to get rid of it so we don't reabsorb it into our blood. So what does that mean? We have to become experts at exhalation. Most of us aren't. We breathe out a little of the air that we took in and changed from, well, and oxygen only is about what, 15-20% of our environmental air anyway. So we're getting very little oxygen. So we're taking in the oxygen, we're converting it to carbon dioxide, which is poison, and we're supposed to be exhaling the carbon dioxide, making room for new fresh air that we're taking in. Well, some of us breathe very, very poorly beginning with exhaling. We breathe out a little bit, but say this is the lung, and we breathe out this much carbon dioxide. Poisonous gas stays and mixes with the air we're breathing, which is only about 15-20% oxygen. So we're rebreathing carbon dioxide, which is poison. So we need to learn how to breathe out better. Exhale, practice. Till you can't get any more out. And then take a nice deep breath, nice and leisurely, not leisurely. You're cleansing your lungs and you're cleansing your blood and refreshing it with higher levels of oxygen. Many people who have that little tank or that little oxygen generator hanging around their neck and with their nose and are walking around because they have little oxygen, many of them could fix that by learning how to breathe properly. So that's one of the ways to do it. And the other way is to breathe oxygen, obviously, by a tank or one of those new little oxygen generators that removes the inappropriate gases and leaves a little bit more oxygen. That's a good way to do it. There are some downstairs in the Center for New Medicine. There are some chlorophyll supplements. Chlorophyll supplements. Chlorophyll is to our blood what red blood cells are and oxygen do for our body and our brain and every cell of our body. So if you look at that chlorophyll supplement and utilize it, you can increase your oxygen levels a bit. Not a whole lot, but a bit. How can you measure your oxygen levels? There's a little machine. It fits on the finger. Almost all of you go to the doctor once in a while and they shove it on your finger. And it has a special light in it that can identify oxygen. And it tells you, you have, 98% oxygen. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. But what if it's 75? I would call the priest as well as the doctor because you're pretty close to needing the minister or the rabbi or the priest, you see.
And some people, if they were to put that on their finger all day long, they would see the fluctuations and it would remind them.
Amen.
Oh, maybe you're dropping down to 91, 92,
Amen.
89, 90, and you're not thinking about breathing, so you're taking those shallow breaths. Sometimes that's a great reminder. Oh my gosh, I need to start.
Let's remind people. Breaths. Let's have a breathing class. We can have a breathing class here. We can get the people together and teach them how to breathe. And if they do that, they can change their life. And I say that with great confidence.
One thing I've noticed is when people are stressed, they're anxious, they're nervous, or they're just overwhelmed, they tend to take more shallow breaths.
Very shallow.
And what that does is it keeps the body in what we call a sympathetic state. That means our fight or flight type of our nervous system is in a dominant state. And we need to help transition people into what we call a parasympathetic state, where we're relaxed, we're able to recover, we're able to digest, we're able to think more clearly. And you can actually shift that just by the way you breathe. And really, when we say, okay, I want you to literally close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, calm your nervous system down. What's that? That's literally shifting your entire nervous system into a parasympathetic state. What does that do? It helps your oxygen leave your hemoglobin molecule and actually get into your cells.
Magic.
And so even with some simple strategies like that, you can literally train your brain through that exercise to help calm your entire nervous system down and oxygenate your body, which is pretty amazing that you can do that in a matter of minutes.
It is the most important element our body has, and we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to put it to good use, to fortify our energy levels, to increase our level of health. It's amazing. If we can learn how to utilize oxygen and acquire it properly, we can change our lives. You think that's right?
I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Good. Amen.
And that's our most simple nutrient, right? We need it. We need it to survive. And yet maybe there's some things we can do in our daily lives or in our healthcare regimen to help accelerate that utilization better.
Well, let's do it. And that's what we're doing now, right? We're sharing with people. Let's get off our butt, so to speak, and learn to breathe better.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for learning a little bit more about oxygen, the importance of oxygen, and how we can help you get more oxygen in your life.
Well, we've got everything we need in the hyperbaric department to give you up to 1,000% more oxygen than is normally the level of our blood.